Happy New Year, everyone. It's Darla Reborn, and today I'm at the park with my kids on the first day of the year, and I'm really happy and excited about what 2020 is going to be and what we're going to do in this year. I have some really great intentions and some goals, and just being my best is my intention. And I know that a big part of that is to share my gifts, to share things I'm learning, to share my love, and to be present um, more than ever in my life is my goal. So I want to talk today particularly about a subject that I've been passionate about, concerned about, perplexed about for such a long time, and that is marriage, particularly military marriage. Now, just to give a little background on myself, I'm married to an active duty soldier in the Army. Only Army guys are soldiers. And yeah, I don't think the Marines are called soldiers. I think they're called Marines. But anyway, so it's been 13 years. When he got into the Army, he was just out of college. He enlisted, though. And we've been together from E4 to E7, now promotable. We're currently stationed in Puerto Rico, and we are anticipating actually exiting the Army life. But I am actually contemplating joining and going active as an Army social worker, which is my professional background. We have three children, and we were college sweethearts. So we were together exactly 4 years before we got married. And this journey has been chaotic, it's been exciting, it's been frustrating, it's been a lot of things. But we're here today, and I want to talk to couples who are engaged, contemplating marriage. This applies to anybody in a relationship, but I am particularly talking about military marriages because I know how much of a challenge it is and how many transitions you go through in this lifestyle. Um, Active duty, there are incredible amounts of changes that you go through, especially if you're dealing with deployments and that type of thing. My husband is in the infantry, and before that, he was a military police. So he was deployed to Iraq as a military police and then twice to Afghanistan as an infantryman. So we have experienced a lot. Anybody who's familiar with active duty infantry life, outside of deployments are many trainings. I remember one year when we were stationed in Alaska at Fort, I almost said Fort Buchanan, that's Puerto Rico, at J Bear in Anchorage, Alaska. He was gone for 6 months out of the year. He went to a whole bunch of trainings. They were preparing for their deployment, and it was just me and my kids, And so, anyway, that's a little bit about me. I could tell a whole story. I'm planning on writing a book about my experiences as a wife, as in a military family, and some of the challenges and the triumphs. Excuse the airplanes, which pass over quite frequently here. But it's a tough life. And something that I noticed very early on in my husband's career is that there were a lot of men who were E6s and E7s, and they were on their second marriages. And to not have any judgments about that, that's not the point. The point I'm sharing is that nobody gets married with an intention to divorce. Nobody. And so if you're on your second marriage, that means the first one probably didn't work out the way you wanted it to. And I'm here because there are people in marriages right now that they don't think they can make it in. They don't understand what went wrong. They're not getting the things they thought they would get. And they're not satisfied in the relationship. The military lifestyle is so unique particularly because you do spend so much time apart. I didn't count the anniversaries I spent by myself. I didn't want to. I didn't count the Christmases and the birthdays. And, my husband wasn't, at the time, he was my fiance, but he wasn't at my college graduation. I was at his. He wasn't at mine. He was actually in basic during that time. And he couldn't leave. They wouldn't let him. We spent a year apart while he was stationed in Korea. And like I said, he was deployed 3 times. We've spent years apart. And that is not what you envision when you think about getting married. It's just not the mental picture you have that it'll be you by yourself on those times where you expect to want to make memories. You know, the thought of spending a year apart from the person that you want to spend the rest of your life with at the early stages of my marriage was unbelievably painful. And I denied that. I prayed every day when I first got married that he wouldn't get deployed. And I found out on my birthday, and 8 months after we got married, he was in Fort Dix, at Fort Dix, preparing to go to Iraq. At the time, he was in the reserves. And it was tough. It was so tough because I was newlywed. I was in a new place. I didn't have my family with me. A lot of people who are civilian just don't understand the lifestyle. So it is incredibly solitary at times. And as I said, the transitions, we have a lot of people he's worked with who have had children while they were deployed and weren't present for that time, who have kids that don't know them, very well, and not to mention coming back home with PTSD or a TBI, traumatic brain injuries, or without any of the letters or the titles, coming back home from a deployment is incredibly stressful and traumatic, and it's an unbelievable adjustment to go from being on alert and having all your senses heightened, being incredibly stimulated at all times, and then going back to an environment where you're expected to be happy that you made it back home, and you may not feel that way, and that's the side of the service member. For me, my side of the story as a wife is missing someone to the point of just almost insanity, to getting back and wondering why they just don't want to be around anybody and what's going on with them. And he doesn't want to talk to people. He doesn't want to leave the house. He doesn't want to socialize, and things he used to do, he doesn't want to do anymore. Or he comes back and he's mad, or he's mean, or he's distant, and we're just trying to figure out what is going on. There are so many transitions that military couples go through. We're in a time now where deployments are happening a lot less frequently. But no matter what phase you're at, if you have had a deployment in your experience, you are always post-deployment. And a lot of the symptoms and the challenges that come with that time reveal themselves months after, much later, after the experience itself has happened. So it's hard. It's a challenge. And a lot of us aren't prepared for it. We probably didn't talk to people about it. There are a lot of people, it's very rare and infrequent or unusual for people to go to marriage counseling before they get married. And a lot of people who you probably go to for counseling don't know about this lifestyle. So again, it can feel incredibly isolating. A lot of people in the military marry young. He and I were 23 when we got married, and we know people who got married at 18 and 19, and so there's that. You're coming into yourself as an individual. You are just getting to know who you are and establishing yourself outside of your parents' household. And now you're entering a whole new household in which they have expectations for you and you have expectations for them. But just a few months ago, y'all were just kids. You know, I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot to adjust to. And there are incredible amounts of pressures and expectations that maybe society or the person's units or they themselves will have for you. But understand that everything flows from inside. And no matter who you're married to or what their job title is, you have to take care of yourself. I'm not saying any of the things I intended to say when I started this, but right now I guess I'm talking about the frustrations, excuse me, as I'm interacting with my kids at the park. Hey guys, I'm recording. Please go over there. Thanks. Over there. Over there. Excuse me. So it's a challenge. It's a great challenge. And so maybe in this video, that's all I'm really talking about is the challenge. And to let you know that if you are by yourself right now and your spouse is gone and you're alone, you're lonely and you're wondering how you're going to get through it and what it's going to take, just know you're not alone. You're not by yourself. You're not the only person. Don't bounce the ball right now. Go over there and you can bounce the ball. They don't really care that I'm recording. It's like they're completely indifferent to it. It's life, y'all. And I don't really edit my videos very much, so it is what it is. This is what you're getting. This is the real. Not the show, but this is the real stuff, okay? But I have so much love in my heart, and all of my intentions are to just encourage you. You're not by yourself. If you feel like you're crazy, you're just unstable or you're just lost, it's a really great thing to have somebody to support you. If you don't have friends or family that are present with you to talk and to communicate, find outlets for yourself. One of the best things that I could have ever discovered was Zumba during my husband's deployment to Afghanistan. And this was the hard one. The last one he went through, it was just 10 months. I was pregnant, you know. So I'm not going to minimize the challenges of it. It was a challenge. But the first one was a doozy. There were a lot of traumas. People passed. People came back injured. People came back different. He came back different. And during that time, Zumba, I think it saved me. I was a social worker. I was working. Every day I was doing therapy. I was counseling because I was feeling the weight of other people's challenges in their personal lives. And when I found Zumba, I felt so much stress relief. And I decided at that time I wasn't going to miss that class. If I had to end sessions early, I had to take care of myself. You know, and there were times where I probably did. I probably could have been considered, you know, depressed and all of that. A lot of what we consider to be unusual or sick or broken is just normal, and we just don't know how to handle it. And a big piece of that comes from balance, sleep, exercise, the arts, outlets, you know, singing, dancing, talking, journaling. Those types of basic things can make a world of difference. So Zumba was that for me, and I've been teaching now for this year will be 9 years, but it saved me, and it was a thing I could do that always made me feel better. And it happened to be in an active duty community where there were other women like me who knew what it was like, and I can't even express the amount of relief that it feels just to be around people who know what the lifestyle is like, because you just don't have to say it. You don't have to even talk about it. They know exactly what you're going through. They're going through the same thing. But if you were in the reserves like my husband was, if you're a reserve family and the person's deployed or the person's doing things in training or they're having certain experiences and you're by yourself, find your supports. Be very intentional about your self care. I know that this whole thing was about marriage, but a marriage is made up of two people, you know, or more, depending on whether or not you're in a polygamous lifestyle. But at least two people are involved. So it's really hard for it to be stable if one or two of the people are not. So taking care of yourself has to be your number one priority. Most supportive spouses are female. And a lot of the ways that we're conditioned is to be supportive and caring of other people. And a lot of times we don't know how to do that well for ourselves. That stops now. You've got to take care of yourself. And although we're in an era where deployments are happening a lot less frequently and they're not as intense as they were years ago, they're still taking place. And the military lifestyle is still stressful. Take care of yourself. So this is just the first of several videos I'm going to do about this subject. I'll talk more about couples and how you guys can, as couples, be very intentional about the care of your relationship. But for now, my message is that you're not alone, and take care of yourself. Prioritize the way that you feel, your whole life, and the way that you experience it comes from your own internal conditioning and your own experience. So make sure that you're shaping that condition and that experience intentionally and not allowing external circumstances to shape you. That's my message, guys. Much love, and we'll talk more later. Peace.